So this happened. This snapped off, and so that needs to be fixed, and it's going to bring us to our final mod, which will be reattaching the stock, but reattaching it using this component here, which is actually designed to hinge open and lock shut. It's normally manufactured for drones, but we're going to use it here anyway to give this carbine a folding stock, and that should be our final modification and will repair what has gone wrong. So this is designed for drones. It's designed for big drones that have arms that need to be folded out of the way. It's pretty heavy duty, and it's spring actuated, and we'll lock on these two hooks, and it is, if we just use my little measuring tool here on my Swiss Champ, it's about 20 millimeters, just over 20 millimeters in diameter externally. Or if we measure it the other way, it's about 7/16 of an inch-ish. Not exactly. Now, normally you would put a tube inside of it. We are going to be doing it where this goes inside of this larger tube, and on the actual crossbow itself, that's going to be fit inside of here like so. There's a couple of little things we're going to do to make sure it's nice and firm and secure, because we don't want any further problems with metal fatigue, because as you can see, that's super unhelpful. Now part of that is we have these two areas here for screwing, and certainly on this longer section, which is going to be the rear section, that's going to have to be removed. We'll be using the angle grinder to do that. And we'll have to be drilling some of the holes, because obviously we're going to have to screw it on, but we're also going to use some hot glue, which will act as a way of sort of creating a solid internal structure that'll prevent it from wiggling at all, which will prevent metal fatigue. And also at the same time, the hot glue will have the added effect of being like, it's very sort of like a soft plastic, or a semi-rigid plastic, I should say. So it'll absorb shock and just basically make everything a lot stronger. And by the time we're done, we'll have everything back to normal again. So to begin with, I'm going to need to be able to slip this end of the stock over that. And obviously there's a little screw bit here, which I suppose we could take that screw out. Just not waste that. It'll come in handy for some future project. And then what I need to do is take that little bit there and grind it off using the angle grinder. So this may be a little bit noisy. As you can see, this component being made of aluminium, however you wish to pronounce it, it comes off really easily and then fits in here quite nicely. So that's actually a nice little snug fit. I'm happy with that. It's going to go this way up. Now, I want this button to be out of my way when I'm cocking, and I'm right-handed. So I want this to be on the left-hand side, so when I'm cocking, it's not in my way. Now, if I were left-handed, I would want it this way. Because I'm right-handed, I want it that way. But what I now need to do is mark this tube here and here, so that I can drill there and there, and then put everything together And then that way, when that's fused, when it's all attached, all I'll need to do is press this button in, and I'll be able to swing the stock over to the side of the weapon. So that'll actually be quite neat. And to be honest, I'm sorry I didn't think about this in the first instance. But you live and learn. Okay, so next bit is the drilling on those two bits. So I'm just going to mark it with the step drill. Make sure that's lined up, yes. Take that off now. And we're just going to drill straight into there. Okay, it's bouncing around a bit, so I might actually find it a little easier to actually fit it back. Oh, actually, now that I'm refitting it, I can see that moved a bit. It's not actually properly lined up. So it's as well I've spotted that, because I was going to drill in the wrong spot. This comes back to the old adage, measure twice, cut once. That's good. Now, as you can see, I almost drilled in the wrong spot, but now I have corrected it. I'm just going to check this with my bolt. And obviously I need to use the next step in the step cutter. Make the hole big enough, which it now is. So we'll put that in, line that up, and then we'll just have a quick go on the opposite side. And I'll need to line everything up properly. Okay, so that should all hopefully align rather nicely. And that does. Now I've still got this wing nut. I'll eventually replace that with a regular nut and some thread lock, because I don't ever want to take that off. But at the moment, this is what I've got. And as you can see, my hinge mechanism is completely unaffected. In fact, if I come around here so I can see what I'm showing you on the camera. So that works quite nicely. So if we get the tail end here, that is now, we have to close this up. That will now attach this way. So what I need to do, first of all, looks like if I can get this out, because that's falling in the cracks. Okay, so this will still be on the outside. So that we're going to use to attach. So I'm just going to go get another tool and we'll carry on to the next. Okay, so before we go on to the next bit, I'm going to have a look at this bit right here, which is just a bit of a mess, and I'm going to flatten that out and square it off, remove that sharp, unsightly bit, and it'll allow us to get this lever section in a little bit better. So I'm going to do that with the angle grinder, because again, it seems to be having no problem with taking out the aluminum very quickly. Okay, so that's a bit hot right now from that, but it is neat, tidy, and reasonably flat. So that's going to work better when we attach everything in there. I think that's going to work out quite well. Now, one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten that up. So a moment ago I went off to get some Allen wrenches. This is a 2mm, and that fits in here just perfectly. So I'm going to tighten that up and see if maybe it grips a little bit. This may not be thick enough, the tail end sticking out, for this to tighten up and make it hold still, but in any event, we'll want this to be as tight as practicable in any event. Now again, we can see there's a lot of movement, so we're going to be doing two things. We're going to be bolting it together, but we're also going to fill the open cavities with some hot glue, which will act as a nice filler and prevent too much motion. I mean, that just comes right out, but that's as tight as it'll get now. But it sits in nicely. And what I'm going to do right now is get a hold of the bolts I'm going to use, and then we'll have another look. Now, as I examine this, I find that if I push this down, I get a little bit. Let's make sure the camera can see this. Yeah, I get a little bit sticking out the back here before that actually touches metal there. Now, I could try and arrange everything so it's like this, but I like the idea of this external tightening, fastening bit to actually grip. So, looking at it, if I cut this little section off more or less where that line is there, then I can loosen this up a bit, fit it on, tighten it up, and that'll give me an initial lock, as well as the screws and glue that I'm going to use. So I think I'm going to do that just because, rather than just attaching this where the chips have fallen, I'm going to make a more conscious effort to make this just a little bit stronger. Put that out of the way. Right, so what I'm going to do now is loosen this up. Couple of turns. Pop that in so it's snug and aligned. And now I'm going to tighten this back down again. And this, not the be-all and end-all, but it's a good starting place. And that's actually, okay, it can rotate a bit, which obviously we don't want. However, it's not going all the way to the end there, so that's good. That will fill nicely with glue, and if I put a screw here and on the underside, that will be locked. So before I start drilling and screwing, I'm going to make sure this doesn't swizzle at all by pumping some hot glue into there. Another little stick into this. Oops. So that bit of hot glue should not interfere with the opening and closing. Once that's cooled down, we just need to remove any excess. So I'm just going to move that before it gets too rigid. So just take that off with my thumb. And now that's kind of held in place. Now it's not strong enough for normal use, but it is strong enough to hold it steady while everything's done. Now that actually gives you an impression of what this is going to be like in use for cocking and so forth, and for folding that out of the way. I like that. And it's not clicking shut, so I think some of the hot glue's getting, no, has to be all the way engaged. Yeah, there's a little bit of hot glue there that's protruding out, and that's actually interfering with its ability to actually lock. So I'm just going to very carefully remove whatever glue is protruding with my little pocket knife, my trusty EDC. And I believe that should work in absolute treat now. Let's give that a try. Yeah, that's just working perfectly. Yeah. Okay, so the trick with this is when you go to close it, press the button firmly in, push it to position, and then release the button, and then it's locked. If you just try and snap it on, it's not going to work so well. But if you press the button in, put it into position, and let go, that actually locks really nicely. So this is held in place. Now there's a little gap there and there from this, and I'm going to just inject some glue into those two sides to help further lock everything in place, if it'll allow me to. Not really letting me. Okay, so I'm not going to mess around with that then, because that isn't really necessary. This is just a little bit of sealing there to keep moisture and such out. So that's just acting as a little bit of a seal. Just around that edge. And remove any excess. Get there. So that's not jiggling at all. Now there is a small hole on the top here and another one on the bottom there. And for that, I'm going to put 2 small holes actually into the aluminum of the lever itself. So the first thing I need to do, we'll go in a moment, but I need to change the bit because I don't really want to use this step bit now. And I'm just going to put a small drill bit in here. And tighten it up. And then we're going to put a little hole through there. That would probably help. It would help if I tightened that down properly. Let's do that this time. Excuse me for bumping the camera. And there we go. That's nice and tight. Try that again. Now I'm just going to take a very tiny screw and screw that in on this side, nice and tight. And now we're going to do the exact same thing on the underside. So, am I in shot? No, let me move the camera. And we're going to take our other tiny little screw. Don't ask me exactly what size these are. These were left over from a washing machine I repaired many years ago and no longer have. And in fact, actually, I'm going to unscrew these because they do fit. But what I'm going to do, because I don't ever want them loosening up accidentally, and these holes I'm drilling are not threaded, so we're just going to make it a little extra strong by squeezing a tiny bit of hot glue in there, which will bite in with the threads and everything surrounding it, and act in this in a little bit like a roll plug would in other situations, making it a good, tight and permanent screwing in. And to be fair, I'm going to unscrew the top side and do the same thing. You don't want to get carried away and put too much glue in these, but just a tiny little bit. And like I say, it acts a bit like, you can do this, it acts like a little instant roll plug, and you can use this in other contexts. If you're screwing something into a wall, for example, you don't have a roll plug, you can use a drop of hot glue. It works in just the same way. Helps everything bite in and stay permanent, and it saves you from having to worry about using thread lock or something like that. And then that tiny bit of excess we just There's a tiny bit of excess there, so I'm just going to use the knife blade to take that off, just to make it neat and tidy. And now the stock is reattached, and with a simple press of the button, folds flat against the weapon. And so that's all it takes to do the stock. Put the red dot up, cocking, no different from normal, aiming, no different from normal, and it works. And recocking for a second shot, again, pretty straightforward. So overall, I would say this modification works really well. As a matter of fact, we just get a little bit better light here. As a matter of fact, I would say, quite honestly, I'm only sorry that I didn't think to do it this way in the first place, because I really like the folding stock. It did mean I had to cut a section off, but that's fine. That wasn't difficult, as you could see. This is aluminum, or aluminum if you prefer. With an angle grinder, it's a matter of a minute's work. Once that's attached, this little component, which I picked up from AliExpress for very little money, and it's made for, as I say, drones. So you can fold the arms of your drone in. Obviously, it's for larger drones. But it works really well. Obviously, it doesn't lock in this open position, so you're either going to need to keep your thumb on that or hold it in this sort of a way. But it does allow you to make it much more compact when you want it to be compact. Obviously, you're going to need to open this up to cock. But once it's open, again, cocking is in absolutely the normal way. And it just works. So what I would say is, it's a good modification, one that I can highly recommend, and if you're making one of these, I would seriously consider doing this attachment here right from the off. I think you'll be much happier with the result. Anyway, I hope you found this interesting and enjoyable, as always. If you haven't already, please consider liking, commenting, subscribing. If you're going to subscribe, click the bell icon so you will be able to follow the next video when it drops, which will be fairly soon. And I hope to see you in the next one. Have a good one. So, as a small bonus, I am not happy with this just flopping about. And obviously, when it is open, it's in the locked position, it's very stable. But when you close it, it could flop. So what I've done is I've actually fixed this so it doesn't flop anymore. The way I did that is I took two small button magnets and I glued one here. The other button magnet was sitting on it, and a drop of glue was put on that side. This was closed and the glue allowed to set, and when it opens again, that button magnet is here. So when this closes, these two button magnets touch. Now they're not very strong, so it's not going to handle really heavy abuse, but it has stabilized it, and I quite like that. So this is now in this compact form. You can put this down and not have to worry about things like the stock just flopping down, because it won't. It'll stay put when you're not using it. Small little extra bonus, but I thought I'd just share. Anyway, see you next time. Bye.